Well, hello everybody. I'd like to welcome all of you to CIS 241, and my name is Tim Coates. I'll be your instructor for this course. I just wanted to welcome you all and just to give you a little walkthrough of our first week and the stuff that you're going to be learning. And so before I do that though, just to give you a little sense of what we're going to be doing, if you've looked over the course and the syllabus and you've checked out the announcement, the welcome announcement there, you'll have read that we're going to be building web pages in this course that are different from the traditional web page, which is just text and graphics. And we're going to take and enhance web pages using a technology based around JavaScript, and it's going to give us the ability to let the user interact more with a page. Now, you've all been on websites and have done this. If you've ordered things online or you've been to websites of any complexity, you've done all of these things. But what you are going to learn in this course is how you can do that kind of stuff in your own web pages. So we'll be building animated effects into our pages. We'll be doing things like menus and panels and the different types of graphical components. You'll be able to respond to mouse clicks on a page. So we'll be building, for instance, a battleship program, a game where you can click on the boxes on the page and try to find all the ships if you've ever played Battleship before. So things like that you can do. You can build regions of a web page that communicate back to a server, and those regions can refresh themselves automatically without having to reload a page. And that technology is called Ajax, and you see that on a lot of different websites. And so just a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with all these technologies that are out there. And in this particular course, all of these technologies are client-side technologies, meaning that all of the action occurs on the client's computer. The server delivers the content to the client, and then the client runs the content. And that model is really only half of the picture. The other half is all happening on the server. And that is what we do in the second web development course. In this course, we focus on the client, and then in the follow-up course, we focus on the server. And the two together give you a really well-rounded picture of how to develop a web application. So that's what we're up to, and kind of in a nutshell what we're going to be doing this semester. So what I want to do now in this video is to go through and show you how to build and test a web page using HTML, CSS, and we'll just throw some JavaScript in to get things working. I'm not going to really get too carried away with this first video here, but we're going to use the Aptana Studio and put all this together to build a page, and then I'll show you how to submit your, if this were an assignment, how you would submit it on Blackboard. And if you look at the assignment this week, you'll be asked some questions, and then some of those questions are just multiple choice, written response type questions, and then two of the questions are actually going to ask you to write a web page and submit the content of the web page, basically the code underneath, the HTML code. So I'll show you how you would submit that in Blackboard here. So by the end of this video, you should have a pretty good sense of how the course works and how to submit your assignments and kind of the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, which you're being introduced to in the first couple of chapters. Now next week, we really dive into JavaScript proper, and you're going to get into the nuts and bolts of programming with JavaScript. This week, again, is more about the tools and the processes, and just kind of introducing you to the whole concept of what we're going to be doing. The book is really good. I like it. It's very well written, got a lot of good examples in it, and I think you'll like the format of the book with the Mirax way of doing it. They put the running commentary on the left side of the page, and then on the right side you get your kind of a summary of what they're saying on the left side. So if you just look at the right side of each page, you'll get a nice summary of the material without having to read a lot, which is kind of cool. So with that then, I'm going to jump into the programming end here, go to my computer, and I'll show you what I'm going to build. We'll go into Aptana Studio and build it, and then I'll show you how to publish it to Blackboard, assuming it were an assignment and you were going to submit it. So I'll show you how that works too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive down into the computer here and we'll get started. Hello everybody. In this video I just want to take some time to go through chapter 1 and 2 and touch on some highlights and talk about Aptana Studio a bit. So in this first week you're given the option of using Aptana Studio. At least I think I'm pronouncing it right. And I just wanted to show you that environment a little bit here first for those of you who choose to use this. Again, you don't have to use Aptana. It's really what it is it's just making your life easier as opposed to using a text editor. Some people are comfortable with the text editor. They're really comfortable with the file system. They can copy and move files around, and they really don't need a tool like this. But if you're just starting out, especially, it really does help you a lot. One of the nice things about it is it color codes your code as you're typing it in, which is kind of nice because if you do something wrong and you misspell something, let's say, the color won't look right, and it's kind of a key to fix it. So lots of things like that a product like this will give you, and it's free. Now, if you decide to use it and you've installed it, and I'm running it here on a Mac, but this will work similar in Windows, just might look a little different. But you're asked to select a workspace. Now, in Aptana, every time you do a web application, it's called a project, and projects go inside of a workspace. And the way this works is the workspace is a folder on your computer, and then every project is a folder inside of that folder. So right now you'll notice my default path is going into my Documents folder under Aptana Studio 3 Workspace. Now in your case, if you look in the book, they suggest that you change this path to point to the C:/Mirac, I think it is, and then /jQuery or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but anyway, they wanted you to create a folder on your computer and then get all of the student data files into that folder, and then basically point Aptana at the path where those samples are. And then what will happen is Aptana will say, oh, you're wanting to create a new project at this location, but there are already files out there. See, normally when you create a project in Aptana, it's something fresh, it's new, and it's empty. What we're saying here is we've already got a bunch of stuff, and we just want Aptana to make it into a project. So it will warn you a little bit with some messages, and you see that in the book. But if you jump through all the hoops and do what they want you to do in the instructions, you'll end up with a workspace that includes a project that has all of the chapter examples in it. They also recommend you make a workspace for your exercises, or essentially your assignment problems, and then another one for the solutions. They all are going to go into a workspace folder, and they're all going to go into the same workspace folder. So when you choose this, pick something that you remember and that you use to store files for your courses, whatever that might be. So I'm just going to leave mine at the default. Now you are asked this question every time you run Aptana, and if you want to pick your workspace and not keep seeing this every time you launch the app, you can select use this as the default and do not ask again. And then it will open up the environment for you. And you'll notice here that on the left side you have what's called a Project Explorer. And as I said, you'll have one project with all of the chapter examples in it if you follow the instructions that were given in the book. As a general rule though, when you point to a workspace and you haven't created anything yet, it will be empty like you see here. Now, the local file system, if I expand that out, I'm able to navigate my various reference points that my operating system provides. And under Documents here is my Aptana Studio 3 workspace. And of course, there's nothing in it. So, what you're going to want to do, say you're doing an assignment problem. You're given exercise such and such on whatever page, and it asks you to create a web page, let's just say, okay? So you go into Aptana Studio, and in the upper left corner, there's a new button here, and if you drop that little triangle down, you can see here, you have the option of picking different types of projects. And what we're interested in doing is the web project. When you choose the new web project, you have the option of using a template. And a template essentially lays out for you some of the stuff you always need to build into your web pages. So for instance here, you can choose a default project without a template, or a basic template which includes an index.html file. Let's just go ahead and pick that option. The project location, notice it's set to use the default location, which is in your workspace folder. And now I'm going to type in assignment 01 and hit finish. Now what that does, okay, what have we got here? The git command requires tools. Would you like to install them now? I'll say yes, why not? This stuff here, you should only see this once when you first install the product. You'll get a little bit of this for a while until it gets everything it needs from off the network. So I'll let this download here a minute and get this installed. Okay, so it installed its components there, and now if you look at the Project Explorer, you'll notice an assignment 01 folder here. And if I drop it down, you'll notice here's an index.html file. Now if I go into my Windows Explorer, well, file manager, whatever it's called on the Mac, if I go into my workspace folder, you'll notice right here, assignment 01, and then my index.html. So if you were going to submit this assignment for grading, that's where your file is. You could attach the file, or if it wants you to copy and paste, you could just open it up right in Aptana Studio, copy it to the clipboard, paste it into the Blackboard system. Trying to make it as easy as possible here. There may be times where you'll have, or there will be times where you'll have more than one file here, and you may be asked to zip up the assignment 1 folder into a compressed file and just submit the file, and then I'll extract out all the contents from it. So we'll get to all that down the road, but for now we have our index.html, and if I double click this, it opens up the code editor here, and you'll notice that we have line numbers and we have color-coded text here. Now one of the things you can do under Aptana Studio, if you go up to the file menu, there's a preferences. And if you go into preferences, you can go down to the Aptana Studio themes option, and here you can set your default font. And I'm going to bump mine up a little bit here. So you can set your default font, and then also you can change the color scheme to suit your preferences. So if I choose Ruby Blue here, you notice it'll give me a blue background. If I hit apply, in fact, you'll notice that it, behind the scenes there, it updated the text and the color. Now in the book they use the Dreamweaver theme, which looks like that. I'm not really big fan of that theme, so I haven't looked at all of these to know for sure, you know, which ones I really like, but I do like the the ruby blue, so I think I'll just stick with that for now. I'll probably change it, but whatever, it's just cosmetics. So that's one thing you might want to take a look at, and set it to whatever your preferences are. Now, some things here. This is your text editing part. There are tabs up here, so if you have multiple files open, you can switch to the different files via the tabs at the top. The Project Explorer has assignment 1 in it. I can create many different projects. They all come up in the same folder over here. At the bottom, this is a structural map of the document. You can select other items here, but this gives you the structure of your web page, essentially, the HTML. So if I come in and I just want to type, my first assignment, and the title, let's call that assignment 1 CIS 241. So I can hit this little save toolbar button here. Now there's a run button and a debug button, as you can see up here, and you'll notice whether I choose run or debug, either way, it attempts to run your program on the Firefox browser. An internal server means that your files are on your file system and you have not copied them up to an external web server. Ultimately, you'll need to do that, and you would do that to test it for a production case, but in our case here, we want it to keep everything local. And it does default to Firefox for me, which is my default browser. And you'll notice there are ways you can change that. You can go in and you can change the web browser, and I mean, tons of things you can do here, but it's all very customizable. At any rate, if I just hit the run button, I just have to resize my browser window here. So what I'm getting is the web page coming up. This is my Firefox browser, and as you can see here, it shows you your web page. Now, notice the address is your IP address is 127.0.0.1, which we call that localhost. Your computer is both the client and the server simultaneously, which is typical for development purposes. The :8020 designates a port, and 8020 is a port that you are communicating through. Ports on an operating system can be open or closed. So, for instance, FTP has a port 22. If your employer doesn't want you to use FTP at work, they can lock that port out. They can lock out port 80, and you can't do HTML, but most companies at least let you do that. But the ports is really there for security. And then you have your / and assignment 01 taking you into your workspace to the assignment 1 folder, inside of it, and then taking you to your default page, which is index.html. This connections over here is not a file. It's an object basically that you can interact with. So the only file that we have here is this index.html. So I can save, I can run. Debugging wouldn't really make sense to do here yet, but obviously you can see as you look through, you have some pretty interesting things you can do in the environment. I don't really want to get into that now. I just wanted to keep this restricted to the basics. But as you're building your first assignment and you start filling out your file, and we're going to be mixing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together a lot in the early part of the semester, so that everything is just in one file, so you don't have to submit 3 files to me, you can just give me 1. Generally, a preferred practice is to split them all apart, but we're not going to do that for a while. At any rate, if all you have to send me is 1 file, here it is here. If it asks for the contents of the file, well then you can just hit Control A to select, Control C to copy. then you can go into Blackboard and paste the code in right directly into a text box. Or if it asks for a file, you can send that. And if it wants more than one file, you can zip them up and send it that way. So lots of ways to do this. It's not too bad once you get the basics down. But I just wanted to show you the environment here should you choose to use it. And for the most part in the videos I'll be using Aptana Studio, but I'll show you a plain old text editor also, just so you can see what the differences are. Now, in Chapter 1, they're really just getting your feet wet, showing you some basic concepts about web servers and scripting languages and what is HTML and so forth. And then in Chapter 2, it takes you on a whirlwind tour of JavaScript basics. Now, if you've had programming experience, you should be able to breeze through this chapter pretty quickly, because you'll know how to do loops and you'll know what variables are, and it really won't be that big a deal. If you're new to programming, however, you'll want to go really slowly through this chapter and take your time through it. And I'll make another video for those of you who need it for Chapter 2. But if you can get through Chapter 2 with little difficulty, then I'm not going to bother for you all to make you watch a video. So the second one I'm just going to put out there for those who are interested. So the assignment for this week is really pretty straightforward. You'll be taking an existing web page and you'll be updating the page basically, and then you'll be submitting it back. So what'll happen is you're going to have a file that you'll be downloading. And in this first assignment there will be two files. The first problem is mpg.html and the second one is sum. Now, if I just, for fun here, if I take these two files, I copy them, and then if I go over to Documents, go into my Aptana Studio 3 workspace folder, go into Assignment 1, and if I copy those two files in to this folder and get rid of index, just delete it. If I go back to Aptana, it'll say, hey, this index file's been deleted or is not accessible. Do you want to save your changes or close the editor without saving? And we'll just hit close. But you'll notice now my two files up here, because I put them into the file folder, I can now see them in Aptana. And so then I can just open up the files here and I can start making my changes to it. If I want to test a file out, I just select the file and hit the run button, and it comes up. So pretty easy to work with, and then I can go in and start making my changes when I'm ready to submit the files to Blackboard. In this first assignment, it's going to simply have you copy the text out. So if you go to your sum page, you'll highlight everything, copy it. You go over to Blackboard, go to the answer text box, paste it in, and move to the next question. So you won't have to submit files in this first program. What you will need to do is to go get the files and put them in the appropriate place on your file system where your Aptana workspace is, then into your Assignment 1 folder, because you created a project named Assignment 1. And then once it's in that folder, going into Aptana, seeing the files here, opening them up, editing them, saving them, and then submitting the contents of them in the assignment. Okay, so just to wrap things up here, the final step would be to submit your assignment. And I just want to show you that. So in Aptana, I have my web pages open. And what I'm going to do is switch over to my web browser and in my course here in Blackboard. So I'm going to head into Assignments, and let's just say this were the week 1 assignment. I would go into week 1, and then you would scroll down to your assignment and click the red link, and then you want to go into the assignment. In this particular one, it's kind of a mixture of questions, and these questions mostly are written responses. So as you can see here, you type your answers to the questions in, and then I recommend you click Save Answer every time, just in case the browser crashes or something weird happens. You just never know. But as you scroll down to the bottom here, question 7, it says complete exercise 2-1. Now, and here is the starting file, right? So you would right click that and download that to your computer, and then you would fix it up. So over in Aptana Studio here this is the file right here, okay? So you have a text box here, and it says when you have completed the exercise, copy the source code of the web page to the clipboard and then paste it into the answer box below, which is this. So I'm going to go back over to Aptana Studio, and I'm going to select all of this code. Now, 2 ways to do this. You can take your mouse and click up the first line, hold the left mouse button down and drag to the bottom like this to select all of the text. Or a quicker and easier way is just to hit Control A, or if you're on a Mac, Command A, and that selects everything like that. Next step is to get it onto the clipboard, and for that usually I would just type Control C. So I just hit Control C to copy it to the clipboard. Now I'm going to switch over to Blackboard and go click into the text box where you want to submit your work, and then you can either hit Control V to paste, or if I right click here on this menu, you'll notice it says your web browser does not support that for some weird reason. They're making me hit Control V, so you might run into that. You might have to use the keyboard here, which is a little bit weird, but anyway. But this is what you'll have. You'll put this right into the text box here, and that will be your answer to this particular question. Now to grade this, what I will do is I'll go in and I'll do it in reverse order. I'll copy this out, the text box, your code. I'll copy it out, and then I'll come over and paste it into Aptana Studio, and then I'll try running it to see if it works properly. So you're basically sending me the text. You're putting it into this text box in this Blackboard assignment, and then I'm just taking it and pulling it out, sticking it into Studio and running it. Now, the assignment, by the way, it acts like a test. Normally in Blackboard, when you put something together like this, where you're answering questions, it's a test. So you might see that term used at various places in Blackboard, but it is not a test, it's your assignment. At any rate, you don't want to hit Save and Submit until you're ready to send it for grading. When you hit Save and Submit, it's going to go into the grading bin. So if you're not finished yet, you can hit Save All Answers and close window, or if you've been pushing the Save button all along, then you can just close the window. And your browser may ask you to confirm that you want to leave the page, and you can just go ahead and leave it, but make sure you've saved everything before you do that. And you'll come back to the main screen here. So pretty simple process. Doing it this way, you don't have to submit a file or a set of files. The only thing that we might run into trouble with further in the course is a situation where you have a lot of files to give me, and in that case I may just have you zip them up into a zip file and send me a file response back with that zip file. When we get to that point, I'll show you how to do that. We're not there yet. So for now, we are good enough on submitting this, and I think we're good to go for this video. So I'm going to wrap things up now, and if you have any questions, feel free to email or call, and I will do my best to help you through it. So welcome to first week, and I hope the week goes well for you, and we'll talk to you soon.